Got it. Yes, got it. Yeah. Okay. We in?
We're in.
Yep.
Can't see a thing. Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to the February meeting of the Cambridge Community Board. Okay. Do we have any apologies?
There are no apologies, Madam Chair.
Okay. I can only see, oh gosh, I can only see me in the corner. I can't see anybody else. So that's great. No apologies. Thank you. Thank you, Mum. I'm just changing my pen. Sorry. Apologies. Okay. Disclosure of members' interests, please. Do we have any apologies? What's going on here?
No, Madam Chair, it's just nobody's replied to you. So
Oh,
we're no declarations of
Gallery
interest.
view. That's better. I can see everybody now. Thank you.
We can see you crossword.
We can see your crossword here.
You what? Oh, it's round the wrong way. How do I fix that? Oh, I see. Up here. Yeah, done that. Switch camera. That was Ray's crossword, not mine.
Late items.
Later items. Do we have any?
No late items.
Lovely. Thank you. Confirmation of the order of meeting. The order of
I'm
meeting.
happy to move the confirmation of the order of the meeting, Madam.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Right.
Aye.
Right. Public forum. Do we have anybody for the public forum?
No, nobody for the public forum.
Right. Okay. We now move to the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any issues with any of the minutes of the previous meeting?
Sue, I'd just like to change one thing that I said, please.
Yes.
Well, not change one thing I said, just clarify in the minutes. It was item 8 about the animal nuisance bylaw.
Yes.
Community board members queried that the number of pigs in large lot is greater than what would be on a commercial farm. I was comparing the stocking rate of pigs with a livestock farm, not a pig farm. Look, I know it's a minor point, but a pig farmer might take offence at that. So could we just say queried the number of pigs on large lots or something like just leave it at that, please, Karen?
Okay. Is everybody happy if we do that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You're right. Yep.
Right. Well, we'll do that. Thank you. Okay. Do we need to do proper motions for that, Karen, or is that all?
Yeah, well, if that's the only correction to be made, then we can approve that the minutes be as circulated, be confirmed with that one correction to it.
Right. Well, then move quarterly reports.
Oh, hang on, just back up the truck, but we just still need to move and second that. It still does need to be a motion, though.
Okay. Right. Well, Mike, would you like to move that?
Yeah, thanks.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Ellen, thank you. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Right. So carry on. The next item, animal nuisance bylaw consultation, quarterly reports, Treasury report, notice of motion, sister cities gifts, schedule of meetings, board members reports. I think that's about it. So there's no more corrections. No? Right. So we can now move the minutes as a true and correct record of the proceedings, can we?
That was done with that correction by
Right.
Mike and seconded by Alan.
Okay, so it's all those in favour. Aye, good. We done that now? Right.
Yep.
Now we can move to the next item, which is the skate park update. And I believe we have a couple of people to speak to that. Gina and Brad, are they going to?
Yep, kia ora, I am here trying to turn my video on. I'm having issues with my camera. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, here we are. You're here. Thank you, Gina.
Here we
Good.
go. I am here, and Brad is obviously here as well. So,
Kia ora.
yeah, look, thanks for having me. Just obviously I'll take the report as being read.
Yes.
But yeah, just as an overview, I guess the team were pretty stoked with the response that we had for through the community consultation with both skate parks. The numbers were great, and some really good feedback around our design, and yeah, looking really good, and pretty excited about moving forward. Obviously there was some feedback around things that weren't included in the original plan, so that's all gone back to the designer now, and hopefully we'll get a lot of those things put back into the park. So yeah, all things seem to be moving in the right direction for this. So yeah, I guess I can take any questions if anyone has anything, unless you wanted to add to that, Brad.
No, it's a great turnout, and yeah, couple of young lads went away with skateboards as part of the promotion as well. So I think Jenny, they were pretty wrapped with their prizes when they got turned up at their doorstep. So no, it's pretty cool. And a lot of some of the feedback that we've received was stuff that wasn't included. Things like shade and drinking fountains and signage, because we were focusing primarily on the skate design, so they were always going to be included. But great that the community thought that they need to be included, which was very much on our radar as well. So great, there's some alignment there. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Brad and Jenny?
No questions, but Madam Chair, but just I was at that first feedback session with my 6-year-old, yeah,
Yes.
and 3-year-old, and it was great to see Brad, so many actually and Gina's teenagers showing up and having their say, which was so well done, kind of engaging the community in that way. It's awesome. And I was really impressed with the types of feedback you received. I thought that showed really great engagement with the project and with what they're wanting for it too. So well done. It's really exciting to see how it plays out.
Oh, that's
Thanks,
good.
Liz.
Yeah, I look forward to bringing my son-in-law, who was formerly in the New Zealand skateboard team, and my grandsons to say have a try. So thank you. Okay, anything else on that one? No? We need to move that one that we accept that. Anybody? No.
Happy to move, Madam Chair, that we received that report.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Right. Now, draft transport strategy. Have we all read this? Hi, Rachel.
Good evening.
Okay. Would you like to speak to your report at all?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and kia ora koutou, Community Board members. I've seen some new faces up there I haven't met before. I'm Rachel Elgar, and I'm a transport planner at Waipa District Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening about the transport strategy. I'm taking the report as read. We now pleased to have a draft strategy for public consultation, which will be running, kicking off next week on the 8th of February and running for a whole month until the 8th of March. I do have a short presentation that I'm happy to run through today, or else if you would prefer, there's just some key questions that we'll be asking the community, and we'll be asking, as well as including that, key stakeholders about the draft, transport strategy.
Right. So do people want to see the presentation that Rachel's offering, or do they just wish to ask questions?
I think we should see the presentation, shouldn't we?
Okay.
Very happy.
Okay. Yep, we'll see the presentation.
Great, thank you. Okay. Share. Just bear with me a moment. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
So our wonderful graphics people have given us a beautiful front cover and some marketing material to run through with this draft transport strategy about Waipa moving with the times and telling us which ideas you like for the consultation. So we just go to the next. Oh. Yep. Right, and just in terms of the presentation, I'll just run through the purpose, the project phases and structure, vision, objectives and outcomes, key priorities for that transport strategy, consultation timeframe, next steps and feedback and questions. So the purpose really, the transport strategy is an update from the 2010 Waipa Integrated Transport Strategy, in line with what's currently happening in terms of changes in policy, growth. I've got a significant amount of growth in the district and community outcomes. It provides a long-term view for transport projects, which is helpful for prioritising funding, and identifies transport issues and areas and objectives and actions for the future. The strategy also considers how we might move around in the future through new technology changes and transport modes. And there's a number of things in that area that are changing, and as we progress through. The project has 5 key project phases to date. The project kicked off with a review of the 2010 old strategy, which showed a number of completed projects that have happened in the district, such as the Cambridge section of the Waikato Expressway, Te Awa Cycleway from Lake Karapiro to the Avanti Drome, and soon to open for the entire section. Te Awa Cycleway, Cambridge and Porongia town concept plans, new regional passenger transport plan, and a number of safety improvements, speed limits around schools, speed limit bylaws, and more cycleways such as the Hamilton Road Cycleway. Through the information gathering phase, we have also reviewed key policies and strategies at the national, regional and district level, which have been really important in terms of framing up this strategy. We also pulled together the crash data, census data, household and employment data in terms of growth and where that was happening, and ran the Waikato Regional Transport Model to understand future traffic patterns. We also had a couple of workshops with stakeholders and attended Ngā Iwi Taupu Hui in April, May, July, November last year. Workshops were also held with councillors to help inform the strategy's development. We now have the draft strategy, which, as I said, consultation will kick off next Tuesday. So this is the strategy structure that we followed. For each of the focus areas, there are objectives and outcomes and a number of priority actions. The actions have been developed from the national, regional and district-wide policies and strategies and input from iwi and stakeholders, as I said before. This is our vision. Transport vision was again workshop with iwi stakeholders and councillors, and shows the way we're moving around is changing to a more multimodal transport system with a less car-based transport system, which is traditionally what our transport system has been based on. The vision is that people in freight and Waipa have access to an integrated, safe, sustainable transport system that provides a range of transport choices. We're also really grateful for the whakatauki provided by Ngā Iwi Taupu representatives that highlighted the need to understand where people in Waipa travel and their differing transport needs, and working in partnership to achieve the goals. So these are our key 5 objectives, and under each of those, a number of outcomes. So if I just go through each of those in terms of our priorities. Number 1, and that is to do with our response to climate change. A major key focus for our transport strategy in terms of reducing transport greenhouse gases and making sure we are working towards zero carbon emissions to 2050. Also prioritising walking, cycling and public transport to include mode shift, which then reduces carbon emissions by providing and promoting other transport modes. And also monitoring the network to ensure it's resilient to natural hazards and extreme weather events such as major rainfall, etc., etc. A second area is supporting growth, economic development and regional connections. And that's identifying and protecting transport corridors, prioritising important local regional freight routes to support our primary industries and our economic base, and prioritising our active modes, public transport and people spaces. So they are more enjoyable in terms of spaces, and we provide a range of transport modes rather than car-based type strategies. Also integrated planning, promoting higher and mixed use density and multimodal transport options, which includes making sure that we can be our new growth as a mix of growth in terms of growing within the towns, but within the towns and around the towns, so we can encourage more transport options. Also continuing to work with our regional partners, such as through the Regional Land Transport Program that Waipa is very active with, Future Proof, the Hamilton Waikato Metro Spatial Plan and the Road Safety Partnership Programs as a region. And also a couple of key areas where our main growth is happening in the district is progressing and reviewing the Te Awamutu Western Arterial in line with looking at the strategic road network and safety improvements in Te Awamutu, and also looking at Cambridge's transport network and safety improvements, and considering that in line with the investigations for a bridge, additional bridging for that. Road safety continues. Next one is making our roads safer for all users. Road safety continues to be a big challenge and issue, not only for the district, but regionally and nationally. And that's and looking at our role and what we can do there. And that is to make sure we provide safe roads for all users, including the pedestrians and cyclists, through good design, lower speeds, safer speeds through re-engineering for lower speeds, as I said, urban mobility networks separating from traffic to encourage more people to safely cycle to school, to workplaces, etc. High quality bus stop facilities to improve safety and security, so people want to use the bus services, and community safety programs, a number of regional programs to highlight road safety and get those key messages about road safety through. Number 4 is about access and mobility. On this lovely facility here, this is my son in Cambridge, and that is about embracing the recreational biking revolution, urban mobility networks and facilities to prioritise walking and cycling and micro mobility, and that's the whole area of urban mobility networks for Cambridge and Te Awamutu to begin with. Growing public transport patronage, and there's some work going on through the Regional Passenger Transport Plan and the Hamilton Waikato Metro Spatial Plan to look at those connections across the region. And also exploring transport options for the rural sector, and enhancing services for transport disadvantaged people. And the last one is about embracing technology. There's going to be a lot of change happening in the future. Some tech analysts believe that many of us in about 20 years' time will stop owning cars. I read an article the other day that someone was predicting that would only be in 10 years' time and we'd all be in driverless cars. So there is thinking and changing. We've already seen the start of EVs, electric vehicles, e-bikes coming on board. So it's about us embracing and continuing to embrace that technology and those changes within our roading and transport network. So those are the key 5 areas. How will we implement this and monitor it? Well, we'll be measuring progress towards achieving the actions. We'll be monitoring to ensure the strategy actions are achieved across our work streams, and continuing to update the strategy to take into account any significant variations or changes within the review. And we estimate it at least every 5 years. We could be doing that. So our next steps, we have a draft transport strategy, is to carry out the engagement with public and stakeholders, and that'll be a month-long process. And following that, we'll incorporate that feedback and consider that in the final transport strategy. And that'll be, we're estimating around April for adoption to council. But we do have some key questions in terms of tonight for the community board. And that is, do you support the vision? People in freight and Waipa have access to an integrated, safe, sustainable transport system that provides a range of travel choices. Should any of the objectives be changed? Should any actions be changed? And anything missing or any comments?
Okay.
And I'll just say thank you, and we can go back to that slide if you like. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. Do any board members have any questions they'd like to ask about this? I'm wondering, firstly, how we're going to actually get people to think about different modes of transport. I think a lot of us are wedded to cars, and you know, a safe, sustainable transport would be wonderful, a system, but are we looking at any other examples that have come up with something similar to what you're hoping to achieve?
Well, yeah, to respond to you, Madam Chairperson, I mean, we don't want the congestion associated. We know our district is growing. We don't want the congestion associated with lots of cars. There's some national direction that's been quite clear in terms of providing transport choices to reduce demand, but also addressing climate change too. So a number of across New Zealand, worldwide, a number of we're addressing this and looking at this as a priority for transport strategies.
Okay, because currently I'm just looking at the feedback question slide, and here's a picture of a bus, and we have a great chunk of Cambridge that, for example, has no bus service. The closest service, I mean, it takes the old part of Cambridge East, it goes into Leamington, but we've got huge growth outside of those areas, and there is absolutely no bus service. You're walking or you're travelling 2 kilometres at least to get to a bus stop. So are we pushing for a change of bus routes?
Yes, absolutely. And I think Brian is here on this call, and I think I understand that there has been a review of bus services recently that will come into play. There's been quite a significant review through the passenger transport plan, but he may be able to talk to that if he's...
Yep, I can. Yeah, I've heard that conversation, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Yep. So certainly the councillors on the community board will know of the business case for increasing passenger transport. So council and the LTP has certainly put aside more ratepayers' money to expand the bus services, and so the first phase of that was to have higher frequency and longer hours. So for those people who are travelling outside of the current bus hours, that the buses would be available longer hours and in the weekends, but also that the bus would do more of a loop around Leamington and the north side of Cambridge to put the bulk of the population of Cambridge within a much shorter walking distance of a bus stop. So that was the first goal, and then in future phases to increase bus services. And I guess it's something that we do in partnership with the Regional Council and Waka Kotahi, because they are significant funders of the service. So that sort of planning and thinking is going on, and certainly in the next bus contract and everything that we're looking to have established, those new services and greater coverage will be established.
Thank you. Does anybody else have questions?
Yeah, Sue, just the aim of the bus service is to have nobody more than 600 metres from a bus pickup stop. Any less, and then you've got the bus stopping and starting and sort of never getting to where you want to go. So that's the maximum that we want to have. Yeah,
I think that's very good. I can remember many years ago, in a geography class at university, and we were told about the Toronto system, where people would actually literally ring up and a bus would be nearby within 10 minutes. I don't think we've quite got to that, but I think what the councillors are asking for is a really good way of doing it. So well done, councillors.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Brian, I've had a couple of, are you still online? You've just dropped off my screen, I presume you are.
Yep, no, I'm certainly here.
Okay. I've had a few inquiries from some people in the Oaks, mainly in the village there, about wanting a bus out there, and some residents out St Kilda way.
Yeah.
I have directed them to the website to say put it in writing, and said it's been reviewed. But when is the next review coming up? Like, when is the next bus contract due for renewal?
So we had actually hoped to have had that renewed contract running now, but there's, I guess, a bit of a hold up with the Regional Council and procurement, but also there's been some work going on around, can we make our bus fleet electric in the next contract, and how would we do that? How would we transition from diesel buses to electric buses? What sort of infrastructure do we need? So there's some thinking and planning and discussions going on around that. But yeah, watch this space. I do expect there will be changes before too long. I guess the around those areas that are more far flung from the town centre, like St Kilda, it would be, is that got a population density to warrant a bus that would go there on a regular basis, or is there another way that we could service that? And we're certainly looking and to explore the options. We know that we've got a good total mobility service running at the moment, so that's a subsidised taxi system for people who can't drive, or they don't have a car, and they can't use public transport, so that subsidised taxi service is available. They get in touch with the Regional Council, register for the service, get their card, and then they can get a half-price taxi service that will, because often those people want to be able to, be picked up from their door, taken to the supermarket or the doctor's appointment, and then taken home again without having the ability to walk a long distance.
I wasn't
to a bus stop.
Yeah, any of the people I've spoken to have certainly still got two legs and perfectly mobile.
Right.
I was more thinking, from my I would have thought you'd put something on a main road outside, not necessarily drive into the village to their door and pick them up. But it's not only the people in St Kilda village, it is the public in St Kilda that have asked about it. What about, is there anything that could be looked at in the way of these? Have you seen the new buses that Hamilton got? I saw one the other night. They're quite smart looking, 12 seaters or whatever they are, 15 seaters.
Yes, that's certainly an option, and we have had discussions, and I know Liz Stolwick, Deputy Mayor, was talking to Timaru and their trial about this on-demand type bus service, and that is certainly a potential option for Cambridge and for those areas. So yeah, we've got an eye on that, how it works, what it costs, and what sort of patronage or person does it suit, that sort of service. Okay.
Can I ask a question too, Brian? So if we went for a system like that, which is very much the Canadian Toronto system of 40 years ago, how long would it take for it to actually start in Waipa District? Are we
Yeah.
looking next year, 10 years, 5 years?
I guess it depends on, you know, what do they cost? Because we do have to work with the regional council in Waka Kotahi for funding and work within our LTP process of you know, rating the ratepayers for those services. And so, yeah, it does need to be done well, because often it can be a big financial commitment to even start a trial. And so we would have to, you know, have done our homework to make sure it stacks up.
Right. So we're not talking in the next 3 years. Is that what you're saying?
Not within the current LTP period, I don't believe. Not unless the central government said, actually, this is something we want to promote right around the country, and we've got the lion's share of the funding, and council could manage its funding share with an annual plan changed with a budget that was manageable.
Okay.
But I guess we do have to watch that space. The government, central government, obviously wants to move on emissions reduction, and at the moment we know that the existing funding system for whether it's passenger transport or road maintenance and construction projects is kind of groaning under the burden of lots of work, lots of growth, but diminishing revenues coming in from petrol taxes and road user charges.
Right.
Brian, Sue, some of the correspondence that I've seen from the regional council, they're actually struggling to get bus drivers at the moment. There's a very big shortage of bus drivers all over, but bus drivers, yeah, they're really struggling. That might stymie some of the routes that they're talking about bringing in as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ray.
Hey, Sue, Alana, Elise, and myself have got hands raised. You mightn't be able to see them. Alana was first.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Alana.
just a couple of things quickly. Great to see that there were mentions. Sorry. Maybe.
Sorry, what was that?
Alana.
Yeah, sorry. Just good to see the mentions of the route between Chalmers and Cambridge. And also there was a comment about a bike access scheme. What would that entail?
Sorry, what was your question again about a bike access?
Yeah. So under Object 4, access and mobility,
Yes.
there was a mention of a bike access scheme.
Is that the point number 2?
This isn't the stuff we have in our agenda.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I could probably answer that, Rachel.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yes.
Sorry, I don't have the
So-
agenda right in front of me.
Yeah. So part of the urban mobility business case is not only to provide the infrastructure, but it's also to look at education and what things might be necessary to actually enable people to use the infrastructure. So we know that there are some in the community who don't have access to a bike, and yet it might actually be a really good form of transport for them to get to school, say. You know, may not be eligible for a bus service to school, and yet they live, you know, several kilometres away from the school, and so a bike would be an ideal solution. And so we thought that part of that urban mobility business case, we could join with, you know, community partnership groups, and we know that it happens in other towns where they collect up old bikes, fix them up, and make sure they're in good roadworthy condition, and then make them available to schools and say, look, we know you will have some students who don't have access to a bike that could really benefit from it. And so that could be a way that we could actually get more people cycling, but, you know, really help people who are transport disadvantaged.
Sounds great. Great. Okay. Also under the iwi and stakeholder engagement, under the engagement principles, there was a comment about ensuring as much possible that we draw on previous community engagement. So not to over consult. Probably just given the more recent cycling things that have been going on, just be careful with that one in terms of the feedback we've received from the public about thinking that they perhaps haven't been consulted or haven't been consulted in the right way.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Alana. Yeah, that was just really understanding and just being careful and working with our comms people to make sure that we weren't asking the same questions and we weren't doing the same things, and making sure that we were just careful with our engagement. So no, I appreciate your comment there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody else had questions?
Yeah, can I go next, Sue?
Yeah.
Then Elise, I think that was the order. Hey, Rachel, thanks very much. I really enjoyed reading this report. I think it was really good. I just, I'm the rural ward rep on this community board.
Fantastic.
And there's just one sort of overarching comment I want to make. You read through it and I fully support it. You know, everything it's trying to achieve is totally supportable. But as a rural person, there is a risk that you can feel a little bit marginalised by some of this stuff. You know, you're talking about discouraging short trips in town and mode shift and all, which is great. But just bear with me for a minute and I will describe my typical trip to Cambridge. I will come in with a massive trailer, put a couple of tons of something on the back of it from one of the rural stores or a timber trader or something. And I've been doing this for a long time. And it used to be that I had all these little pet parking places that I could park a 6-metre long trailer around Cambridge and then go to the lawyer, go to the bank, go to the accountant, get a cup of coffee, all that sort of stuff. And that has got really noticeably harder over the past few years. And it's actually got to the sort of stupid position where now I'll do that trip, come back, drop the trailer off and go straight back to town just because it's too difficult. And when you're operating like that, you don't have the kind of options that an urbanite will have of walking or riding. I can't take my bike on that kind of trip and ride in. It's got to the point now where I'll be parking quite a long way out in Leamington and walking back across the high level bridge. So I was just a bit of a plug for rural people like me, because I know I'm not alone. I've heard a lot of people saying this, geez, it's getting hard to do anything in Cambridge. And I want to see Cambridge retain that sort of flavour of you can be a farmer and visit it. Like it's not like going to Auckland or going to Hamilton where you just feel completely out of place. And so over the past few days since reading this, I've been racking my brains. What kind of things could accommodate people like me? And I first thought of exclusive parking, and I thought, no, that'd be a bit rude. That probably wouldn't fly. But I came to a softer version, which I just wanted to float. Would there be some ability for like a trailer parking spot? It always used to be around the cricket ground. I always used to be able to park there easy and, easy little walk into town. I don't mind walking a little way, but that is getting harder and harder and harder to achieve. And when I read the sort of things you're targeting, I can just see this is going to become really hard for me. So that's it.
Yeah, look, thank you, Mike. I appreciate your comments, and we absolutely haven't forgotten about rural access, and we'd focus on looking at possibly future regionally rural access in, but we things to consider would be of that access when you've got a larger load, you're carrying in those spots that are growing in high demand areas. So we'll take your point there.
I think Elise has a question.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. My hand. Great. Thanks, Rachel. I have three points to just float with you. The first would be in support of Mike's statement. I also live rurally and do note there's already positive steps that we're taking to encourage people to do modal shift and more walking and cycling, but it just feels like a real impossibility when you look at that and you look at your options as someone who lives rurally. And I don't bring a trailer into town, but I have seriously considered, I work in Hamilton City, and I've seriously considered how can I get to work not taking my car, and it's just impossible. So like just our bus delivery is so inconsistent from Ohopo. It's like leaves every 2 hours or something. It just is literally impossible. I would be an hour late or I'd be an hour early, and then I couldn't get home in time to pick up my children. So I think there is some really important work that needs to be done in that space, because a lot of people living rurally aren't necessarily farmers. They're also on lifestyle blocks. And I think even to that point, rurally, when we think about other options for people, even around schools, I think there's a real opportunity to do something around our rural schools, and we've got a number of rural schools in the district. And I think, hey, it'd be great to send my child a 3-kilometre ride to school, but it's desperately unsafe. There's no way I'd put him on that 100-kilometre road or even the 80-kilometre road with no shoulder.
Yeah.
And whether or not there's some opportunity there to be thinking, how can we improve access around our schools? You know, I see local kids walking to school and they're just like traipsing through knee-high grass on the side of a drain, and everyone lives within walking and cycling distance. There is a lot of our school population who lives in walking and cycling distance of their school. Yes, they could take a bus, but I know it's an expensive thing, building footpaths and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's something worth exploring around community centres and hubs like town halls and primary schools in the rural space.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you.
The second point was just on the urban mobility. I know we've seen this picture before, the urban mobility for Cambridge I'm referring to, and I was just looking at the proposed cycleways. Am I right in interpreting that map to say that there's no protected cycleway along the main street through town in that plan? It's just a shared path?
It's just a shared path.
Is there like some reason why you're not aiming for a protected cycleway through there?
I can probably answer that question.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah.
So I guess the urban mobility business case, certainly we understand that getting through the town centre of Cambridge is an important issue, and that we know, for example, most Leamington college students in Leamington who are cycling across the Victoria Bridge, and they're going some way through the main street to get to Thornton Road and then up to the school. So we know it is important, but it's also perhaps one of the most difficult ones to do. So it's probably not the one that you would start with first. I guess a classic example, Rotorua Lakes Council started with their greenway through the middle of the city, and it was a very torturous project with everybody offside and everybody upset with the outcome. And I don't think that's the way we want to start, especially when we've got lots of very good options to improve in Cambridge, routes that will get a lot of use, but also get that groundswell of community support for that change of mode.
Thanks, Brian. So when you say shared path through there, what are you envisaging it? Would it be separate, like shared along the footpath, or there's a fly buzzing around me, or a separate path? I'm just trying to visualize that. What that might look like.
So in the urban mobility business case, we acknowledge that there's places that cyclists will want to go, but because of the level of activity there, the number of pedestrians, the movements, the couriers, the parking, and all those things, that unless you can completely remodel the main street, the cyclist has to become a guest or a user that's got to go carefully through the main street and share the paths, unless they are one of these, really confident cyclists who is happy to cycle at speed up the middle of the lane and through the roundabout, and they've got all the confidence and the skill in the world to do that. But many cyclists won't have that skill or confidence when the town centre is busy, and so they will use the footpaths, but we want to educate and encourage all cyclists, if they have to go into those really busy spaces, that they understand their obligations to do it safely and to be looking out for all the other users on those paths.
So would you say that the bike path that we have there, the green strip, would that class as a shared path currently? Is that what you would it look different?
No. I guess that sort of cycle path, the green strip, in a busy street, is an old-fashioned idea. It's what people would have done 10, 20 years ago, but the design ideas have moved on. So we know where there's lots of cyclists and lots of traffic, that the only way that people who are not really, really fast and confident riders, the only way they'll ride is if you give them a separated path that's not in the traffic. And so that's why the Hamilton Cycleway, that separated path and the separated footpath is the way that we want to move for those high volume and busy road routes to separate cyclists and pedestrians and traffic from each other.
Okay, so the shared path described in the urban mobility plan is not the same as the current path we have, but it wouldn't also not be a protected specific cycleway.
Yeah, I guess so. There will be shared paths around the town where there's lower volumes of pedestrians and cyclists. And for instance, we see at the moment the Thornton Road out towards St Kilda has got a nice wide shared path, and it works pretty effectively. A lot of people are cycling, a lot of people are still walking, but there's not major conflicts. So you can see in that sort of situation that works quite well. But hey, in 20 years' time or 15 years' time, if there's a greater number of residents and cyclists and pedestrians out in that location, then we would need to look at a separated pathway for the wheeled users to because conflicts will arise.
Yeah, I can understand that maybe there's not a need for a separated path because people who are probably using the CBD are maybe stopping, cycling and stopping and hopping off. It's not necessarily a thoroughfare. But what I'm just not catching is this urban mobility plan that we're looking at that council has described. Does that shared path, will it look different to the current path that we have running through town?
Yes, and I guess I just come back to that point at the beginning I made that, we're not in a position to say to all of the retailers and all the residents of Cambridge, this is what the path through the middle of the main street will look like. We can't say that yet because we don't know. And that is
so that hasn't been decided yet.
No,
so we'll think about the concept of
a
shared path.
Yes.
It's still very kind of high level and we don't know what the expression of that is in the CBD. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Brian. My final point was in terms of the community consultation. That's the next phase. Is that's correct?
Yes.
Are these the same questions you'll be asking them, or are there different questions you've come up with? What's the process?
Yeah, thanks, Elise. Pretty much these are the same questions. They've been fleshed out a bit. We've developed a feedback form to enable people to easily respond. If they don't have a lot of time, you can feel free to write your own submission or use the feedback form, but these questions are pretty much the same as that are being asked to the public and stakeholders as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody
Thanks
else
very
have
much.
any? Thank you, Elise. Does anybody else have any questions? I would just like to say I've recently been down the South Island and in Oamaru, they still have parking in the centre of the road, much as Cambridge used to have, and they have cycle paths where the cars used to park. And I'm wondering, maybe we could go back to what Cambridge was 30 odd years ago. I know it would mean removing some trees, but the cars were in the middle. They could come in and out either way, and people would still be able to cycle up the roads, but that's just a thought.
There's just one thing with that, Sue. Cambridge moves about 50 times faster in Oamaru. You need to realise that when you live in Oamaru, you are back in the
Except you've also got State Highway 1 running right down the middle of Oamaru.
Yes, that's right. I owned a couple of houses there. It's Cambridge is a lot further forward than what Oamaru is.
You're obviously not from Otago. Right.
No, I'm a Waikato person.
I cycle through the CBD every day twice, and it's working very, very well.
Good. Thank you, Graham. That's great. Okay. Does anybody else have any further questions for Rachel? Any discussion? Right.
Good presentation, Rachel. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Rachel.
For your time.
Yeah, no, really good.
And feedback.
Yeah. So we are moving on to
Just one moment, Madam Chair.
Well-
Does the community board want to submit feedback to this, the draft transport strategy or not? I have a proposed recommendation based on what's been discussed here today, if you're interested in hearing.
Yes.
So what I've drawn up here is that the Cambridge Community Board submit feedback to the Waipa draft transport strategy in support of the strategy. The submission shall cover the following points and be approved by the chairperson prior to the submission. Point number 1, acknowledge and allow for rural access to urban centres. Access to rural centres to support alternative types of transport, and protected cycleways through busy urban centres. Would that sound right? Yes, no, anything else?
Has anybody got any comments on that? Sounds pretty good to me.
I have a bit of a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Look, I'm a little nervous about us forming a view as quickly as that. You know, that was a really good discussion. We threw some ideas around, but to turn that into a submission that's signed off just by you, so I don't think it's particularly good practice.
It's a bit fast. I'm in agreement with Mike.
Okay, yeah, no, I don't have that.
I think we could either, you know, after some consideration, form a collective view, or obviously everyone's free to submit as they like. But I personally, I don't think we're ready right here and right now to shoot from the hip on that.
Okay.
Would you just like to say that the Cambridge Community Board submit feedback to the Waipa draft transport strategy in support of the strategy? Joe? with some, well, can we just stop there or not, Joe?
Well, I was just looking at dates actually. So your next meeting will be the 2nd of March, and it looks like the close of the consultation is 7th of March. So if you want to work on something in between meetings,
Can we just receive the report and then sort out feedback?
And then can do some work in the meantime over the next couple of weeks, and then you could have your submission that was included in the next agenda to approve that, and it would still get in time.
I think that sounds reasonable.
That would work for me.
Yeah,
I agree.
Good.
So we just need to receive the report then. Sorry,
Yes.
Rachel.
Okay.
Yeah, just wanted to say that because of Waitangi Day, we've changed those consultation period from the 8th of Feb to the 8th of March. Just one day out. That was in the original report.
I think that would work well. Got time to have a think on that one. How does everybody feel about that? We leave it till the 8th of March.
So sorry, so just to clarify, are we going to discuss it at the 8th of March, or do you want us to maybe have some discussion around it outside of the formal meeting and then sort of just clarify those final points at the meeting?
How does everybody feel about that?
Yeah, I support that. I think that the way to do it is if you want to put something in writing, or people do, we compile it, get something we can all live with, and then it goes forward. That's I think the best way of doing it as a community board.
I think we might struggle within the meeting and particularly if we're in this capacity as well, we might have some more constructive discourse in more of a workshop style setting.
I think that's right. I think so. Everybody happy if we do that? Yeah. Okay. Do we need to do this formally, Joe?
So in terms of today, if you just want to pass that recommendation, as Karen said, to receive the report that we'll deal with today, and then you can
set a date.
Work on the submission, and then we can include that in a separate report for next time.
Okay, we'll do that. So,
right.
So do we need to move that?
Happy to move, Madam Chair, to receive the report.
I'll second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, the next one. Gosh, I'm losing my way here. District, no, we've done the draft Waipa transport strategy, have we?
Yes, Madam Chair, we're on to the quarterly reports.
That's what I thought. Thinking, gosh, we're moving. Quarterly report, district growth quarterly report.
Kia ora everyone, good evening. I see Kirsty's on there as well. Kirsty, I'm not sure if you want to do pick up your areas. I'm very comfortable to cover them off if you'd like me to, and your hands on it. Cool.
Thank you, Tony. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Tony, I'm happy for you to lead this. I'm here for another item, but I'm happy to respond to any questions that relate to my area. Yep.
Okay. So if I can take the report as read, and I'll just cover off the high points really. So at the national level, there's been quite a bit happening. The report talks about the 3 submissions, and they're appended as well, around managing our wetlands, the Resource Management Housing Supply Bill, which is now an Act, and the 3 water entities. Resource management reform, so there's quite a bit happening in that space. There's a consultation document that came out towards the end of last year, and there's a working group that council's pulled together under Kirsty's guidance to provide some submissions back 28th of February on that June. Drilling down from the national to the sort of regional level, there's a bit of work, a bit of action around the future-proof area. So they released their future-proof updated growth strategy for the region, for the sub-region. They've heard hearings, they invited submissions and heard hearings on there. There were a number of submissions seeking to advance, I guess, out of sequence developments across the Waipa, Hamilton and Waikato districts. And there were a few of them that relate to the Waipa area. So those submissions have been heard. There's a governance panel, which is represented by our Mayor Jim, and they're meeting in March this year to make some decisions around those. We've got the 3 water study, which is ongoing. Metro transport plan is ongoing. In the, again, national direction, I mentioned that we've had what was the Housing Enablement Bill, which is now an Act that received royal assent in December. So I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the district sense. We're looking, I'm just drilling down now to page 4 of the report. So we're looking at a better way of reporting on monitoring and uptake. And there's 2 components to that. One is at the future-proof level, and there's the preparation of the development capacity work there. But also in our district council level, we're looking at a smarter way of monitoring the development uptake across all the growth cells in particular. So that's a piece of work that we've got underway as well. In the district planning space, we are still on track. Well, we're a little bit off track, actually behind schedule in terms of transitioning our district plan to an E-plan. So that's an online interactive version of the district plan, which has some pretty smart tools in it when we get that up and running. We have a number of national directions. So I'm on page 4 now of the report, not the agenda. The Housing or the Enabling Housing Supply and Other Matters Amendment Act, that's created a bit of a headache for all councils. So we're what they term a Tier 1 council, and that's been changed now. We're a specified council under the Act. We are mandated to do a plan change, so we don't have any choice around it. And that plan change means that we need to introduce new medium density residential standards across all of the residential zones in areas with a population over 5,000. So that's Te Awamutu and Cambridge. And this has got a bit of media attention. So you probably heard of the 3 houses on each section up to 3 stories high. That's been reported. We have to do a plan change. It's a government directive. And we're just getting our heads around what we put in there, the scope of it and the time frame for that. We're looking at collaborating with Hamilton City and Waikato District around that because they're in the same boat as well. And we're looking where we can to take a consistent approach with that. There's quite a lot of work that's still to happen there. Practically, we don't think it's going to practically mean 3 houses on every residential section in Cambridge and Te Awamutu, but certainly there will be developers who want to maximise the opportunity, even landowners who aren't developers who want to take that opportunity to develop. And under these rules, intensification is a permitted activity. It doesn't need a resource consent, and in many cases, it won't need a subdivision consent either. So it's really, really permissive. On the list of plan changes, there are a couple there just to update that you might be interested in. So plan change 19, Carter's Flat. We've had a workshop in November, and Sue, I think you were at that one.
Yes.
So we're advancing that. We're looking at having another key stakeholder workshop with landowners and probably in March around that one. That's a relatively straightforward plan change in a way. So it's only looking at really uplifting existing deferred commercial zone. But what we've done is we've clicked on a local area plan. So that puts a bit of design thinking around that area. And the intention there is to, I guess, achieve over time an urban design outcome which makes it a sort of smart, attractive, future-focused commercial area. And the other one you might be interested in as well is Plan Change 17. So that relates to the Hautapu industrial growth cells. And there's two parts of that. One is to align the structure plan with the master plan. So that's infrastructure driven. And there's the master plan, which is the design plan, is slightly out of sync with the structure plan that's in the district plan. So we have to update those. But the other component is part of one of those growth cells is the one that fronts Peak Road. That's in the district plan is for development post 2035. We've already issued a number of consents for that area. And so we're thinking it makes sense to bring that forward to pre-2035 development. So that's the scope of that plan change, and we're looking at notifying that in the first half of this year. Just moving down, there's quite a bit in this report, so I'll just run through it quite quickly and happy to take questions. Resource consents, the real story there is we're having sustained growth in terms of the number of applications coming in, the number of queries and inquiries coming in, which is putting the team under quite a bit of pressure. So we're on automatic time extensions at the moment, and we're starting to see, and we thought this might happen, some of those timeframes that we're required to meet not being met just simply because we can't get through them fast enough. We are drawing on consultants, but the consultants are telling us too that they're really, really busy. And it just seems to be an economic stimulus across the Waikato in particular, and with the Waikato and Waipa in particular, that we're at a point in time where there's a lot of growth coming on stream. We've got growth cells that are being activated. We've got national direction that says build more, build faster. And we've got still in migration, particularly into Cambridge, from the likes of Auckland, you know, the COVID refugees, and the housing upsellers. So we've got a lot of that still happening as well. Same with LIMs. The LIM numbers are increasing, and that just reflects what we're seeing in the consent area.
Right.
All the growth cells are in the appendix, so I'm happy to take any questions on those. I won't go through those in any detail. Building consents are the same, so consent numbers are showing again continued increase, so the same kind of story there. Again, it's putting quite a bit of pressure on the staff, and that's been compounded by trying to recruit in a highly competitive market where there's a real difficulty in councils and also private building compliance entities getting qualified staff. So it's incredibly competitive, and that's on top of an increase in development consents that are coming through. In the monitoring and enforcement space, it's probably a slightly different story. So it's either more stable, or, and particularly in terms of parking, what we've seen is some of this parking, from my understanding, some of the parking complaints have eased off a little bit with a little more enforcement that's happening. Animal control and liquor licensing is pretty much status quo, just continuing on. So that's a wrap up of a high level summary. There's a number of appendices there and a lot of detail. So perhaps I'll just hand it over now if there's any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Yes, Elise.
Thank you. Good spotting of my hand. Thanks, Tony. It was just a question in regards to the plan change, the one about the animal bylaws. Sorry, I'm trying to find the page. That's the one that we submitted on, I understand. Is that the one that we submitted on? That.
Page 18.
Sorry, page.
You did.
I was singing diligence change praises and now I can't find it. PC 18, yeah, 18. So it says the B rules are going to be removed because they were the ones that we sort of commented on being not quite maybe appropriate. So yeah, what's happening there?
So the decision was made, so plan change 18 is finished, it's beyond appeal, and the decision was made by the commissioners there to approve plan change 18, and the recommendation and the decision was to do a plan change, but also to manage the bee nuisance through a new bylaw. So we don't currently have an animal nuisance bylaw, and so the decision is there. It's just kind of sitting there at the moment, hasn't been implemented, and the way of implementing it is to enact a new bylaw.
Oh, that's the one we submitted on, I think, the new bylaw.
Was it? Okay.
Okay, so this is just a plan change. It's not the actual bylaw. That bylaw hasn't been enacted yet.
The bylaw was the consequence of the plan change decision, so they're kind of linked. Yeah.
Okay.
So the bylaw was reported. So the hearings were actually heard on Tuesday this week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Strategic Policy and Planning Committee. And what's happened there is it took a slightly different twist and turn. So there was some evidence presented around some of the bee controls, which have caused staff to go back and look at whether we've got the recommendations right. There was a lot of evidence presented in Plan Change 18, so we're going back to look at that evidence basis to see if some of the things that are in the plan change are actually right. And one example of that is setbacks. So, for example, the bylaw proposed a 5-metre setback from bees, of beehives from boundaries. And there was some evidence that actually that might not be needed.
That's what we commented on specifically. Yep. So I'm familiar with those parts of the bylaw. Sorry, so that was just, I thought that was saying the bylaw was enacted, but you can clarify for me that it's still sort of happening.
It is still happening, and it's been broadened. So there was some submissions on, can we please include restrictions on cats?
Okay.
Yeah, that caused a bit of debate within the committee, and the staff were asked, because we're not under any real time pressure for it, so staff were asked to come back and see if we could look at whether we can include some regulations or controls around cats. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know if it's possible. So there's a piece of work there that we're looking at as well.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, just one thing right at the end, Tony, there was a mention of the local alcohol policy up for review in June. Yeah, is that something that the public are going to be able to comment on, or is it?
I'd imagine it would be, so I'm not across that in any detail. I would have.
I can respond to that, Tony, thank you. So through you, Madam Chair, it is a statutory process that we're required to follow in terms of reviewing that policy. So it is scheduled in our program of work. However, we're just having to reprioritise work, as Tony mentioned, potential scope of animal nuisance bylaw, which was partway through development, has been extended in scope. So there is a statutory period for review. It is a public process, and that will be led out of the strategy team supporting the compliance team led by Carl Tutty. So yes, we would be looking to engage with the community board and the wider community.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just know a few people after the Blue Bottle one might be interested in making some comments on that. So thank you.
Thank you, that's great. Okay.
Sorry, so through you, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Yes.
I just had one more, Tony, in regards to the mandatory plan changes for the enabling the housing supply intensification plan. So the council, you put a submission against that, putting us as a tier 1 council. Hey, so can you just clarify for me, we're no longer a tier 1 council, or we are still a tier 1 council?
So we are. So we have been identified, and it's in law now, enshrined in law, that we are a tier 1 council, and what is called a specified council. There's a bit of confusion around tier 1 councils and tier 1 local authorities, and so the Act has clarified that to say that Waipa is a tier 1 council, and it's a specified council that must do this new plan change.
Right, and I understand that the council had concerns about it. So what's sort of your process going forward now, in light that this is now law, but obviously there were a lot of issues that you felt this presented for the community. So what's the way forward for?
So good question. So the really big concerns, and it wasn't just that all up and down the country, and Auckland Council submitted pretty strongly on it as well. So the two primary concerns are around urban design. So if you think of worst case scenario, and Hamilton City Council actually did some visuals of what a worst case scenario could look like. It could turn towns and small rural towns into pretty ugly places. Yep. So that was one of the concerns. And the other one is that we haven't planned for this level of density and intensification.
In terms of your infrastructure.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's not in the LTP. So the way forward is that we need to scope up as our own council, but also consistent with Hamilton and Waikato, because we share the same concerns. And there's kind of power and unity. So we're all pretty well aligned in terms of our concerns. We think that we'll have to do separate plan changes, but we can probably combine on the key issues or share the key issues. Infrastructure, the way around that is that we do have the ability to change the financial contributions that are currently in the district plan. So what that means is that allows us to claw back the costs of any infrastructure upgrades.
Okay.
That are
so you
unplanned.
can charge for people who want to make the decision to intensify their house.
So we have the ability to do that, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. Can you go crazy with that? Like, or does it still have to be a reasonable charge?
It has to be justified. But we'll be looking at it pretty closely to see how far we can take it.
And in terms of the act now happened, is there any further lobbying or advocacy that anyone can do, or this is it, it's done, there's no way back now, we've just got to make it work the best we can?
It's in law. It's in law now. So and the deadline is that we have to notify the plan changes by August this year.
Which is a lot of work in a short period of time, right?
Yeah, and look, it's really crazy. A lot of all the councils and local government as a sector and the professional institutions all put feedback to say, why are you making us all go through a publicly notified plan change when you're prescribing these standards? Why not just use something like the National Environmental Standards? If you want to prescribe these, then there's a much faster, easier, streamlined way of doing that, rather than forcing all the councils to go through a protracted public process. And no one can really understand why they're doing it that way.
And which the public doesn't have much say on anyway, by the sounds of it.
Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because we are mandated to put these things in, these new medium density standards. We're going to get submissions, and a lot of submissions are going to be saying yes, some of them will be saying no. But because we're mandated, the submissions that say no, they'll carry no weight because it's a mandated. That's right. So it becomes
it feels like a pointless piece of consultation that you're forced to do when the outcome is the same.
Yeah, it's really a bit unprecedented.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony, for your report. The next report, we were going to move your report along with Dave Symes' report. So is Dave there?
He's not. So he's out on a birthday dinner tonight. So I'm standing in for him. I was happy to do that.
Oh, you're standing in for him too? Yeah.
So I can just take you quickly through the highlights here. There's not a lot to report, to be honest, but I can take you through them. So I'm looking at page 190 of the agenda. A few changes happening in the civil defence space. So there's a new NEMA, which is the national agency. It has rolled out what they call a trifecta. So it's three pieces of change, or three changes nationally, which will fine tune, I guess, is a way of thinking of it, how we do emergency management. So the first one is there is a new Emergency Management Act. The way that's been described, it's not a throw the old one out and replace it. It's more of a fine-tuning update. The second piece is they're reviewing an existing, what they call a plan order, and some guidance around that. And the third thing they're looking at is the development of a new National Disaster Resilience Strategy Roadmap. So overall, the intention is to try and improve the current civil defence emergency management system and take the learnings of events that have happened to date. In addition to that, there's a new science strategy, and they're looking at applying a science basis for any civil defence decisions. I guess an example of that might be around, I don't know if there's an earthquake event, the science around aftershocks and subsequent events having probably a little bit more weight than maybe it might have been in the past.
Right.
At the regional level, there's been a couple of meetings around that. There's not a lot to report on those. I'm just reading through it pretty quickly. COVID would be of interest. So during Delta, civil defence and emergency management was kind of transitioned out at that point. So CDEM ran the first COVID in 2020. During the Delta, it sort of was transitioned out. And for this Omicron and going forward, that's been handed over to the Ministry of Health to manage that with civil defence and support if needed. So civil defence to be activated to support with things like welfare if that's needed. What else have we got going on here? Oh, in terms of response, so just one update there. There hasn't been a lot happening in the last quarter, but with the West Coast flood, just to make you aware, that's a really intense piece of rainfall that they're anticipating over the next 3 days. And to put that into context, the last flood event down there, I think, was around about 178 millimetres over a 24-hour period. This one, they're looking at about 500, half a metre over a 24-hour period.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty intense. So I understand that some of our civil defence guys are kind of on call. Hasn't been activated yet, but if it all turns to custard, then there may be a call for some help around that. So just be aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Tony on this? No? Oh, thank you, Tony, for filling in on that. I appreciate that.
Okay, happy.
Thanks, Tony.
So we now have that we received the report titled Quarterly District Growth Report of Wayne Allen, Group Manager, District Growth and Regulatory Services, and the report titled Civil Defence Emergency Quarterly Report of David Symes, Emergency Management Operations Manager. Do we have a mover and a seconder?
I'll move that. Sorry.
To Elise. All those in favour?
Aye.
We now move to the Treasury report.
Wasn't me there.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I actually missed who moved that motion. I got Elise as a seconder, but I didn't hear who moved it.
I actually neither moved nor seconded it. It was Joe and Alana and Alwyn who had their hands up. So take your pick.
Which you want. Okay. So we are now into the...
If it's okay, Joe to move and Alana to second.
Yep.
Yes.
Cool.
The Treasury report.
So that's the report up to the end of December. Are there any questions?
Well, there's a balance of 35,000 in committed funds. Well, we've still got Anzac Day.
Hopefully we're allowed to have it.
Yes.
So just a reminder, in April, the second round of discretionary funding is opening up next week. So hopefully we'll be getting a whole lot more applications coming through for consideration in April.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's something. Okay.
Where does that get advertised, Karen?
We're actually just finalising this, but I believe most of it was online last year when we did it, and I believe there is some in the newspapers as well.
Yeah, good. Yeah, not everybody goes online. Okay, righto. So we've got that.
Would you like to receive the report, Madam Chair?
Please. Thank you. Somebody going to move it?
I'll move it.
Seconder?
I've got Joe and then Alwyn.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Right. Next item is the Anzac Day Budget.
Okay, so I've just thrown some costs together and added even more to it. Last year it was the cost of Anzac Day was just, if I remember correctly, just under $3,000. I've added a couple of $1,000s more just in case. I don't know what prices are looking at the moment when we're going out and getting quotes. So I've just added a substantial amount. Hopefully that will cover all bases should the event go ahead. The working group is meeting first. I think we've got 28th of February as their first meeting, and at that point is when we'll start discussing the logistics, working around COVIDs and the different COVID levels, etc., like that. But at this stage, the whole point here is to just get a budget established so that they know what they're working towards.
Yes.
I think that's pretty wise, Madam Chair. I'm more than happy to
So perhaps we'll
to move the recommendation.
and the Anzac Committee is yet to meet. So I move that we receive the report and approve.
Graham's already beaten you to that, Madam Chair. He's already moved the motion.
I'm happy to second if you're looking for somebody. Absolutely.
I think she has frozen, unfortunately. Here you are. Sorry, Sue, I don't know whether you've heard, but Graham moved the motion and then Jim seconded it.
You're
on
muted,
mute
Sue.
now. You're muted.
Right, I'm back. I don't know what happened there. Okay, that's good. So they've done it.
Yes.
Thank you. Great. Okay, and we've moved to the Chairperson's report. I'll use it again.
No, you're still with us.
Oh, good. Okay. So where are we up to? I'm sorry, I've got.
So we're on the Chairperson's report at the moment.
Right. Okay, we're on the Chairperson's report. I can't see a thing. All I've got is a black screen. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, I've got everybody back again. I can see what's going on, I think. Okay, Chairperson's report. Any questions, queries? There's nobody. Oh, Lord.
I'd say the answer is no, Madam Chair. There are no questions.
It covers everything, Sue. It's a good report, and a lot thank yous which needed to happen as well. So it's good.
Okay, thank you. Righto. So I move that the board accept my report or receive my report. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Right. Board members' reports from meeting attended on behalf of the Cambridge Community Board. Alana, you're first up.
Right, yes, the Autumn Festival. Unfortunately, at our meeting last week, we had to decide due to Omicron to postpone to 2023. Yeah, the two competitions as part of the festival are still going ahead as planned. The short story competition closed on Monday with our second highest ever entries, I think around about 250, which is great.
Cool.
The photo competition is still running at the moment, closes on the 11th of March. The theme is memorable Waipa architecture. So encourage anyone you can to enter that. Doesn't necessarily have to be historical type buildings. It can be just anything that you think really stands out. It could be an old shed that you really admire on the way past coming to work, or a business place that you think's got a really cool design. Anything really. So Facebook, there's a lot of the stuff on that, or the Autumn Festival website has all the entry details.
Right.
But yeah, that's about it at the moment on that one.
Yeah, and we look forward to having the Autumn Festival back as it always was next year.
Absolutely, yeah. The response has been very positive from everyone in terms of taking part next year, and hoping that the situation's better then.
Good, thank you. Chamber of Commerce, Jim.
We haven't had our first meeting yet.
Okay.
But just a bit of information that was circulated amongst us. The foot traffic, surprise, surprise, is somewhat down, but not quite as bad as when we were in level 3. Now, last week, Kevin, pharmacist, had a great idea to try and get the rapid testing kits for us all in the commercial sector, and we all got an email and had to reply whether we'd be interested, and they had a massive uptake on these kits, and now he's not allowed to order them. So that was all the businesses that could possibly lay their hands on them wanted them, and it was stopped. So that's something else that's been happening. That's it until our first meeting. We haven't really got much else to report.
Owen.
Yes, community arts, as we were going to align ourselves with the autumn festival, we've also been put in the wait place, hopefully next year. But we did ponder maybe about if November does come clear, that we could perhaps review it and run our festival of art then, but we'll see how we go. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Owen. Germany eyesight.
No meeting, is it?
Okay. Mike, Safford Community Charitable Trust.
We haven't met this year. It is due in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Joe, Social Services Committee.
We have our first meeting next week. The only news is Harriet Dixon from the Community House is moving on, so we'll be looking for a new chair for that committee. But yeah, that's all the news so far.
Right. And your committee got through Christmas with your people?
Yeah, Christmas cheer was great, as it always is. Very popular, serve the community as it always does. They do such an amazing job. Even the handover from the old Salvation Army folks to the new ones all went really well, and yeah, great.
Great. Oh, that's super. Tree Trust, got a meeting next week. They're still going on. They're very pleased. They've got a whole big car park, as well as planting out a bit of lawn. Jo's probably seen it from her place. So the Tree Trusts are very excited that they have that piece to actually park cars when they're all out working on the different
So is that fence going to come down so people can walk into there and walk around the trees?
I'm not sure about that one. Okay. I will ask next week because they've got a meeting next week. I'll ask them. Okay. Mike, the Cambridge Racewater Treatment Plant Project Advisory Group. Gosh, what a title.
We did meet on 7th of December.
Yes.
Just a little quick update for the community board. They gave us a performance update on how the plant is running with respect to its temporary consent, which was, they were reasonably pleased, the people in charge of the plant. Secondly, just a little bit of a rundown on how the planning process is going for the new plant, which has to be in place. Geez, Graham, you might have to help me. It's something like 2026 or something like that.
Yep, you're onto it. Yep.
Time's fairly pressing on that. It's quite a big project. And thirdly, so the plant is running under this temporary consent, and part of the price of extracting that temporary consent was some funding towards some kind of offset project, like this will be planting some riparian streams or something like that to try and deliver a bit of offset. And so there was a bit of talk about what project was going to be chosen. And I asked for us to be sort of kept in the loop so I could report back to you guys what essentially YPAR funds are being spent on there. So that's my little report.
Thank you. Historical Society, but our wonderful person in charge of the museum has gone off to the Waikato University. However, they're still doing great things at the museum, and they've had some really good displays of late. One of the advantages of being a small museum is that they do change their displays sort of at least twice a year, which is great. And I think they're in good heart. They've got a good number of members who are supporting them both financially and in other ways, so that's great. Okay, Elise, your gardens.
Catching up with the Guardians next week to sort of make some plans for autumn. I will be honest, I've been away, so I haven't been to check on them. I imagine they're pretty dry because there's just been no rain, and watering is a bit of a mission, except for the berm. Pardon?
Sweet corn is nearly ready.
Oh, good. But the berm garden's been going great. Our guardian there has been actually just planting a few bit of extra pieces, and she mentioned that when she harvests the food and then leaves it in a basket, then it gets taken. But if she leaves it on the plants, people won't necessarily take it. So if she harvests it and puts it out there, it all goes. So it's an interesting little sort of social experiment, but discoveries as we go along. Yeah, so not much to report, but we'll make some plans for autumn. And I guess wanted to perhaps talk with you, Sue, about whether or not and what everyone else's thoughts are, promote or ask if anybody else wants to be a guardian for another berm garden, and maybe the best methods of doing that. Because it would be great to kind of keep adding one every sort of 6 months or so, and autumn's a good time to do that.
Lovely, thank you.
So just, in fact, I guess if anybody here knows of someone who might want to do that within Cambridge, that might be a good starting point, let me know. But beyond that, I guess I can approach Facebook, but if you guys have any contacts, that's always a good start.
Okay, no, that's good. Lekan will ask us, this is your working group, Alana?
Sorry, just a quick comment on the pop-up community gardens. I saw that Nick was doing a herb of the week on her little blackboard next to the garden, which I thought was really great.
Oh, so all the stuff she's been doing is so great for engagement. It helps that she's right there and she can leave something on a basket out there. I think that's why berm gardens are maybe a better way for this to have good community engagement, because the guardians are right there versus in the reserved spaces. We require a guardian to kind of walk there and take their watering cans. So I just wonder if the berm garden is the way forward to sort of change increase the presence of them.
Yeah, and I was also wondering, I don't know if she's sharing those little things on Facebook, or if there's any way that we can be doing that.
I literally just added her as an editor on Facebook this week, so she should be able to start doing that. Yeah.
Cool. Great. All right. Yes. So Lukenwa working group, we did have an event planned as part of the Autumn Festival, which is now on hold. We were also planning a catch up for February, also on hold. So it's just a wait and see at the moment. Possibly looking at trying to drive some more of the online content from people's stories of experiences, either in Lukenwa or France, or historical connections. We had someone from Lukenwa sharing photos of Anzac Day celebrations last week, so that was really nice to be able to put those up and generate a bit of content from that. So yeah, hopefully more in that direction, while it's harder for us to actually get together. I haven't heard back on whether they have received a gift or not yet. The courier tracking says that it's there, so hopefully that means that someone responsible has signed for it. That's all on that one at the moment. With Pahoro, they have received the gift, so that's great. I've asked them to send us some photos once they've got it on display, so we can see that. Also, the artist was really excited that her work was going to Japan, and she would love to see those as well. Hitoshi said they are hoping to have a school delegation come over in July, so we'll see whether that happens or not. But at the moment, just corresponding around that, any questions that they might have, or any kind of things that we can build around that if it does eventuate.
Okay, Graham and Elwyn, Council.
Yeah, we ended up just after the mid-December with a 7.5 hour Zoom meetings, which was quite taxing on the brain. Just getting ducks and running, everything finalised before the Christmas break, so the stuff reported on today that we got. So, Elwyn, I don't know whether you've got too much more to go, otherwise it's pretty quiet.
Yeah, well, a very big day yesterday. Gosh, I think we started at 9 and zooming right through to nearly 4 o'clock wasn't a very contained spot to sit. But yeah, lots and lots going on, and much. Well, Albert's trying to do his lunch. Sorry about the background. But yeah, a lot of movement in government, central government, and the way they're looking at the purpose of local government and all of the infrastructure operations that these people, manage. It's quite challenging. Really, it is to watch. Yeah. So
just a little bit of information that came in today. I've been trying to find out what was happening with the new cycleway from St. Peter's to Hooker Road. I got an email today from Jen Palmer, and it looks like it is a little bit of a ceremony at 5:30 on Thursday, the 17th of February, for a cut the ribbon, I guess, by Jim. The reason for the hold-up is that they're waiting for the other part goes into the Waikato District Council. They're waiting for them to sign off their health and safety report and the liability for anybody who comes a gutser or falls in the river or whatever. So those are the little legal things that have to be done before it can be cycled. But very, very disappointed at the moment. I'm out there every morning on the cycleway, and there's some bugger tagging big time, and it's just looking a bit yucky. Yeah.
Can I just chip in there? That's the thing on the 17th is actually Tiawa's celebration. It's not a ribbon cutting, so we're sort of working on that at the moment, but we haven't quite got the date on that. Like you said, there's a couple of things to iron out first. But
yeah. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up? No? Well, thank you all very much for attending this Zoom meeting. We seem to have got through it in a reasonable time, and hopefully we might, for the next meeting, we might actually be able to meet in person. Fingers crossed, no guarantees.
I'm looking forward to it.
It will be really, it'll be really good. So thank you very much for all